Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the rugged hills where Rex crouched, his hand gripping the hilt of his sword. The wind blew harshly across his face, carrying the scent of the wildlands, earthy, cold, and unforgiving. His eyes narrowed as he scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of movement. The people in the village had said there was a dragon nearby, a small one, they claimed, but dangerous nonetheless. Rex had heard such stories before. Dragons were always dangerous, no matter their size. Rex was a dragon hunter. It was a title he bore with both pride and reluctance. His father had been one before him, and his father's father as well. It was a family legacy passed down through generations of blood and steel. But with each passing year, Rex found himself questioning the endless cycle of killing. The war between humans and dragons had been raging for so long that no one truly remembered how it had started. It was simply the way of things. Dragons attacked, humans defended, and hunters like Rex were the shield that stood between the two. He shook his head, pushing the thoughts aside. This was no time for doubt. A job was a job, and this one was simple: track the dragon, kill it, and collect the reward. He had no need for more questions. He scanned the horizon again, and that sigh when he saw it. A small figure limped out from behind a cluster of rocks, moving slowly, its gait uneven. Rex's hand instinctively tightened on his sword. It was a dragon, but not what he had expected. The creature was young, its scales dull and cracked, in places its wings dragging behind it like broken sail. It looked pitiful, weak, nothing like the terrifying beasts he had faced before. Rex rose to his feet, taking a cautious step forward. The dragon turned its head, its golden eyes locking onto him. In that moment, something shifted. Rex had faced dragons before, had stared into the eyes of beasts far more fearsome than this one, but never had he felt that connection. His breath caught in his throat as a strange sensation washed over him, something he couldn't explain, like a thread being pulled taut between them. The dragon flinched, its eyes widening in fear. Rex shook his head, trying to clear his thought. He had a job to do. Dragons were monsters. They had killed his father, had razed villages, destroyed lives. He couldn't afford to hesitate, but as he raised his sword, something stopped him. A voice, soft, fragile, almost a whisper, echoed in his mind. Please don't. Rex froze, his heart pounding in his chest. The dragon's mouth hadn't moved, but he had heard it as clearly as if it had spoken aloud. He took a step back, his sword lowering. What the hell? The dragon's eyes shimmered with fear and confusion, and Rex could feel its emotions, as if they were his own pain, exhaustion, terror. It was injured, desperate, and somehow it had reached out to him. I don't want to die, the voice whispered again. Rex stumbled, nearly dropping his sword. This was impossible. Dragons didn't speak. They were beasts, mindless monsters. Yet here was this small, wounded creature communicating with him in a way he had never imagined. He sheathed his sword, his hand trembling. How are you doing that? The dragon lowered its head, its wings trembling as it struggled to remain upright. Trained. I don't know. I am scared. Please don't hurt me. Rex took another step back, his mind reeling. This was wrong. Everything he had been taught about dragons, everything he had believed, it didn't make sense. This dragon wasn't a mindless killer. It was a child scared and alone, and somehow they were connected. I wanted to hurt you, he said slowly, feeling the weight of his words as he spoke them. The dragon's eyes softened, and Rex felt a wave of relief wash over him, not his own, but the dragon's. The connection between them was growing stronger, and with it came a flood of emotions, fear, confusion, gratitude. It was overwhelming, like being caught in a storm. My name is Nala, the dragon whispered in his mind. I don't know how this happened. The bond, but I feel it. Rex nodded, though he wasn't sure what he was agreeing to. He had heard stories of bonds between humans and dragons, ancient tales passed down through generations, but they were myths, nothing more. Bonds had been broken long ago, replaced by hatred and war. Yet here he was, standing in front of a dragon, bound to it in a way he didn't understand. I am Rex, he said, after a moment unsure of what else to say. And I think we need to figure this out. The fire crackled softly as Rex sat by the small camp he had made, his back against a large rock. Nyla lay a few feet away, her small body curled into a ball, her breathing shallow. Her wounds were worse than he had first thought, and though he wasn't here a healer, he had done his best to patch her up. She had been too weak to move far, and Rex had decided to stop for the night. He stared into the flames, his mind racing. The bond between them, it wasn't just a simple connection. It was deeper, more profound. He could feel her emotions, her thoughts, as if they were his own. And she could feel his. It was unsettling, like someone was in his head, but at the same time, it felt natural. Like this was how things were supposed to be. Rex had always believed that dragons were mindless beasts, but Nyla had shattered that belief in an instant. She was intelligent, kind even, and she was just as scared as he was. The war between humans and dragons seemed senseless. Now a conflict built on lies and hatred, but how could he change that? How could they change that? Nala stirred, her golden eyes flickering open. She looked at him, and he could feel her pain, her exhaustion, but also her gratitude. Thank you to your spirit in his mind. Rex nodded, unsure of how to respond. He had never imagined he would be thanking a dragon, or that a dragon would be thanking him. You saved me. Nala continued, her voice weak but steady. I don't know why you did, but thank you. I don't know why either, Rex admitted, or I was supposed to kill you. That's what I've been trained to do. But this bond it's changing thing. Nala nodded slowly, her eyes closing again. The bond it's something our ancestors shared long before the war, but now it's forbidden. My kind would see me as a traitor for bonding with a human, and your people, they'd kill me for that. But I don't care. Something says wrong here. The war it doesn't make sense. Why are we fighting? Why are we killing each other? Nala didn't answer immediately, but Rex could feel her confusion, her uncertainty. I don't know, she whispered finally. But I think we're going to have to find out. The next morning, Rex and Nala set off, moving slowly through the rocky terrain. Nala was still weak, but her wounds had started to heal, thanks in part to the strange magic of their bond. Rex could feel her strength returning just as she could feel his resolve hardening. They had a long journey ahead of them. They needed answers about the bond, about the war, about the lies that had been told for centuries, and the only way to get those answers was to confront both humans and dragons alike. As they traveled, they spoke little, but their bond communicated more than words ever could. Rex learned more about Nala's kind, how they were once peaceful, living in harmony with humans before the war had torn them apart. And Nala learned about the hardships of human life, about how fear and hatred had driven humans to hunt her kind. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, and with it came new ability. Rex found that he could sense danger through Nala, has heightened senses, and Nala could tap into Rex's combat instincts, making them a formidable pair. But with each new power came new danger. This concludes the first half of the story, setting up Rex and Nala's bond, their quest for truth, and the deepening emotional stake. The second half will cover their journey to uncover the conspiracy, the conflict with the Shadow King, and the resolution. As they traveled further into the wilderness, the landscape began to change. The once rocky, barren terrain gave way to a dense forest, its towering trees casting long shadows across the ground. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of birds and rustling leaves replaced the eerie silence of the mountain. Rex kept his hand close to the hilt of his sword, his senses heightened. He could feel Nala's unease through their bond, a constant hum at the back of his mind. The bond had grown stronger over the past few days, almost overwhelming at times. It wasn't just the sharing of thoughts and emotions. There was something deeper, something neither of them fully understood. Nala's dragon's senses were sharper than anything Rex had ever experienced, and more than once they had narrowly avoided ambushes from wild beasts or hostile hunters. It was like having another set of eyes and ears constantly on alert, but it came with a cost. Every time Rex tapped into Nala's senses, he felt a drain on his energy, as though his body wasn't meant to handle such power. Nala was struggling with the bond. Rex could feel it in her thoughts, the way her instincts as a dragon conflicted with the new connection to a human. She was a creature of the skies of fire and freedom, yet now she was tethered to him, a man who'd once been her enemy. The bond was both a gift and a burden, and neither of them knew where it would lead. As they pressed deeper into the forest, the trees grew denser, their branches intertwining to form a canopy that blocked out the sun. Rex paused, scanning the area, Something felt off. He couldn't put his finger on it. But the air had a strange weight to it, as if the forest itself was watching them. We were being followed, Nala-san's voice echoed in his mind. Rex tensed, his hand moving to his sword. How many? 3, maybe 4? They were not human deep. Rex cursed under his breath. The bond allowed him to sense what Nala felt, but her dragon instincts were far more attuned to the unnatural. Stay close, he whispered, though he knew Nala already understood. They moved cautiously through the trees, their steps silent as they navigated the thick underbrush. The feeling of being watched grew stronger, and Rex's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel Nala's tension, the coiled energy of a predator ready to strike. Without warning, the trees exploded into motion. Dark figures emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. They were neither human nor dragon, something in between, twisted and malformed. Rex drew his sword, the blade gleaming in the dim light, as he prepared for the attack. Nala let out a low growl, her wings flaring as she positioned herself beside Rex. He could feel her instincts kicking in, the primal urge to fight, and it bled into him through their bond. His grip tightened on the sword, and in that moment, they were one a seamless combination of human skill and dragon ferocity. The first of the creatures lunged at them, its claws outstretched. Rex moved faster than he thought possible, ducking beneath the swipe and bringing his sword up in a clean arc. The blade sliced through the creature's semi-arm, sending it stumbling back with a howl. Before it could recover, Nala sprang forward, her jaws closing around its throat. The creature let out a gurgled scream before crumpling to the ground, lifeless. But there was no time to celebrate. 2 more creatures rushed at them, their movements erratic and jerky, like puppets on invisible string. Rex and Nala fought as one, their bond guiding their every move. Rex dodged and weaved between the creature's attacks, his sword flashing in the dim light. Every time one got too close, Nala was there, her claws and teeth tearing into their flesh with deadly precision. The fight was brutal, and though they managed to bring down the attackers, Rex could feel the toll it had taken on both of them. His muscles ached, and Nala's breathing was labored. They stood over the bodies of the fallen creatures, blood staining the forest floor. What the hell were those things? Rex asked, wiping the sweat from his brow. Nala shook her head, her golden eyes narrowed in confusion. But they weren't too natural. Something is wrong here. Rex, these creatures, they were made, not born. Rex sheathed his sword, his mind racing. Made? You mean someone is playing with dark magic? Nala interrupted, her voice tense. And I think we were getting close to finding out who. They continued their journey, their pace quickened by the growing sense of urgency. The forest seemed to press in around them, the trees whispering secrets as they passed. Rex's mind churned with questions. Who had sent those creatures? Was it the Shadow King? The ancient scholar they had met had warned them about the Shadow King's influence. But until now, Rex hadn't realized just how far that influence had spread. Days passed, and the forest gave way to a desolate landscape, a barren wasteland of cracked earth and jagged rock. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the sky above was a swirling mass of dark clouds. This was the Ebon Rift, the stronghold of the Shadow King. Rex and Nala stood at the edge of the rift, staring into the abyss. This is it, Rex muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. This is where we end this. Nala nodded, her eyes fixed on the dark fortress that loomed in the distance. We have to be careful. The Shadow King is powerful. If we were not careful, we could lose more than just this battle. Rex clenched his fists, determination surging through him. Carry through if I've come too far to turn back now. They made their way down into the rift, the oppressive atmosphere weighing heavily on them. The ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with dark energy, and Rex could feel the Shadow King's presence growing stronger with each step. As they approached the fortress, they were met with a wall of enemies, humans and dragons alike, all twisted by the Shadow King's dark magic. Their eyes glowed with the same unnatural light as the creatures in the forest, and their movements were jerky, like marionettes controlled by invisible string. Rex and Nala fought their way through the horde, their bond the only thing keeping them alive. They moved in perfect syncing, each attack flowing seamlessly into the next. But the closer they got to the fortress, the more overwhelming the enemies became. By the time they reached the gates of the fortress, Both Rex and Nala were battered and exhausted. Blood dripped from Rex's arms, and Nala's wings were torn and ragged, but they had made it. Inside the fortress, the air was thick with dark magic. Shadows clung to the walls, and the temperature dropped as they descended deeper into the labyrinth of stone corridors. At the heart of the fortress, they found him, the Shadow King. He stood tall, cloaked in darkness, his eyes burning with malice. "So you've come at last," he said, his voice a low, mocking growl. "The dragon hunter and his little pet? Did you really think you could stop me?" Rex tightened his grip on his sword, his heart pounding in his chest. "We're not here to play your games. We know the truth. You've been manipulating both humans and dragons for centuries, keeping us at war for your own gain." The Shadow King's lips curled into a cruel smile. "And what if it? War is power, hunter. As long as there is chaos, I will thrive. You are nothing but pawns in a game far greater than you can comprehend." Nala let out a low growl, stepping forward. "He won't let you continue that. The bond between humans and dragons can be broken, not by you, not by anyone." The Shadow King laughed, the sound echoing through the chamber. "Fools, you think your little bond means anything. I will crush you both and use your corpses to fuel my magic." With a wave of his hand, the shadows around him surged forward, taking on monstrous form. Rex and Nala braced themselves, their bond pulsing with energy. This was it, the final battle. The fight that followed was brutal, a clash of light and darkness. Rex and Nala fought with everything they had, but the Shadow King's power was immense. He controlled the very shadows around them, twisting the battlefield to his advantage. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Rex and Nala tapped into the full strength of their bond. The magic that flowed between them surged, and with it came a flood of ancient power that had once united humans and dragons before the war. Together they unleashed a final devastating attack, breaking through the Shadow King's set defenses. The dark figure let out a scream as the magic tore through him, his form disintegrating into nothingness. The shadows receded, and the forest began to crumble around them. Rex collapsed to his knees, his body trembling with exhaustion. Nala was beside him, her wings drooping, but alive. They had done it. The Shadow King was gone. As they made their way out of the crumbling fortress, the bond between them pulsed with a sense of peace. The war was far from over, but they had taken the first step toward ending it. Humans and dragons could find peace again, but it would take time. As they stood at the edge of the Enchanted, looking out over the horizon, Rex turned to Nala. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" Nala nodded, her golden eyes filled with determination. Yes, but we were ready." Together they walked toward the dawn, their bond unbreakable, their future uncertain, but filled with hope.